Do you like my counting too? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I'm gonna add 6 in there, so give me a second. There you go. There's my sharp education there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so we will get this rolling. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to play your best rounds consistently. And I did highlight consistently because no matter who plays the game and at what level you are, we always have our good rounds, but we always find ourselves between like always wanting to do good. So we want to play our best rounds consistently. So that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. So as we get in there, you know, if you played enough golf, you know, you might have been through scenarios where you've entered, whether it's a golf tournament, your next round of golf on the weekend, or just an afternoon round with your buddy after you practice for a long time, or for several sessions, you kind of go in super excited. And you know, you keep on repeating to yourself, going in with the same mantra, saying, today's the day I'm finally going to break through. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to have my best round ever. Everything I've been doing and practicing has been working out, and you go out and play, and it's not even close to what you had imagined, right? We hit some shots, and you know, the stories we're telling us as we go through the rounds are, you know, if it wasn't for this bad bounce, or I couldn't hit my driver today, or I couldn't do this, and this happened, and that happened, and just a number of different stories that were going in there. But it's so shocking because we enter those days thinking that today's the day, because on the practice facility, practice range, the putting green, you know, I've been playing so well, I've been practicing so well, I've been doing all the drills and everything, you know, and yet I come out with, you know, an underperforming score. Or, you know, maybe you practice for a really long time and, you know, really fine tune, optimize like every aspect of your game, and on the practice area, practice tee, your driving couldn't have been better, right? You're hitting it straighter, further than ever. On the practice green, your putting speed, is, you know, perfect. You're making everything. I mean, you just can't miss. Your visual, you know, your visualization is perfect, right? Your chipping and everything else has just been so good. And you get out there and all of a sudden it just goes sideways. You can't get visual at all in the golf course. And, you know, just one thing leads to the next. And then, you know, again, another underperforming score. But, you know, we've also had rounds where we just have no expectation, and it's just another day we get out there and, you know, it's not that exciting. You're not hitting it way better than you've hit it in the past. I mean, it's just a normal day, and yet we come out with a score at the end that's either one of our best scores or close to a really low score that's not typical on our average. And, you know, if you've ever been in those situations, right, you know, I have too, right? If you've played golf and played enough rounds of golf, you're going to go through all of these, you know, feelings and all of these scenarios. And, you know, growing up, playing a lot of, you know, golf every single week, you know, during parts of the season, almost every day we're going out and playing, traveling around the country, traveling around the state of Hawaii, playing different tournaments, right? And we're in all sorts of situations, and, you know, you do the best to prepare. And, you know, you get some really good ones, you get some shockingly good ones that weren't expected, and you get the ones that you prepare for so much, and that I prepare for, you know, tremendously, and the result is just not what I want. And you kind of, I always tell myself the same story, you know, I guess I got to go practice more, I got to go fine tune this, I got to work on this, because this, you know, I thought I had it but I didn't have it, and it just didn't work. And, you know, the more, the more I start to understand and look back at these times and working with, you know, a lot of the players that are playing a lot, you come to find and understand that, you know, a lot of times you're playing your best rounds, but we don't understand why we're playing your best rounds, right? And we always chalk it up to like what it feels like we're playing like, or how solid we might be hitting it, how good our short game is. And we always think it's more practice, it's more practice. And a lot of times, yes, it is more practice, but there's a time when you know, you can prepare yourself as much as you can and you just have to perform. And, you know, as we start playing, we also are fully prepared and we get these, you know, really underperforming rounds. And even on your worst days in practice, you would never see something like that. So, you know, the good news is it happens to everybody. And the better news is it doesn't matter what capability you have, whether you're just starting off and you're trying to break 100 or 90, 80, trying to shoot even par for the first time, trying to break par for the first time, right? We kind of still go through the same emotional states as it is when you're just starting and when you're advanced. Excuse me one second. So it's a problem that, you know, we all think about, but, you know, again, like I said, the good news is it's something that's definitely been discussed from time to time, and it's a problem that's been solved. And the way that I look at, you know, resolving this problem and how to play the best rounds, especially when you're as prepared as you can and just your scores aren't what they are, you know, it comes down just to a handful of things. Just, you know, I remember a round I played a couple of years ago, and it was actually probably more than a couple of years ago. It was a round that I went out and played 9 holes one day after teaching, and, you know, I've been thinking about all this stuff, and I didn't even hit balls, but it kind of just made sense in my head. And it doesn't matter what I did, I just went out and I hit everything like as perfectly as possible. You know, off the tee was perfect. My approach shots was perfect. I mean, everything that I looked at, it went there. And I ended up playing probably one of the best 9 holes at the course that I'm at now, probably ever, right? I went out and, let's see, I birdied hole 1, I birdied hole 2, I eagled hole 3, I birdied hole 4, and that's probably the best start I've ever had in my life, where I went birdie, birdie, eagle, birdie, where I went 5 under after 4 holes, made a few pars, made one more birdie, and I turned at 6 under before, you know, it got dark. And I'm like thinking like, oh my gosh, I guess I have these capabilities that I can make all these birdies. And I have these capabilities that once I fully understand it, they're just gonna go where I want them to go. And so the bad news with that is I really didn't know, and I wasn't able to, you know, manage my expectations, because we've all had those rounds where no matter what happened, you went out there and everything went perfectly. And we get this picture and story ingrained in our head that I've done it once, that I can always do it and I can repeat it. So those are the ones that kind of take us down a different path and kind of misleads us into, you know, preparing ourselves to understand what is our best rounds and how do we do that most consistently, right? And, you know, I remember, you know, another round where I hit everything just as well, you know, as I shared a story a few weeks ago where I felt like I hit it fine, and, you know, the ball seemed to be going pretty well, and I ended up, you know, a few mistakes on the last hole that kind of got me to shoot a 91, and I shared I don't know the last time I shot in the 90s, but less than a week later, I believe it was like 5 days later, same type of skill level, not hitting it any better, and then go from a 91 then to a 75 from like the further tee markers. And it gets you to wonder, like, why is it that you get yourself in these scenarios and not much has changed, and my scores goes from something that I can't believe I did that to, oh, I guess that's a pretty good score considering how much I play golf. That's a really good score. Considering the amount of time that I practice and I'm able to put on the golf course. I'm very satisfied with a 75, but not knowing the reasons and not looking further into like what causes me to shoot what I'm shooting. So, that kind of brings us into like our little keys here that I want you to understand today to get you to get yourself to play your best rounds and to get yourself to play it as consistently as possible. So as we kind of look at number one here, we want to know your median score and your average capabilities. So what that means is your median score. A lot of times we address, or we look at ourselves, or we judge ourselves based on what we want to shoot, right? We may even look at our average scores. So the difference between your average is like all of your scores combined, and then you divide it by the amount of scores that you have. And that gives you your average. Whereas the median score, you're taking like every single score that you've had, and you're taking out the highest score, then the lowest score, then the next highest, then the lowest, then the next highest, and lowest, so you have one left, right? And when you look at your median score versus the average, it kind of gives you a better summary of your realistic score. Whereas your average, you could have an extremely good round that moves your average way lower, or you could have an extremely high round, something that's out of your capabilities, that would push your average higher. So it doesn't give you that much of a good guideline on like your score. So if you start look at your median score, because that is like the general guideline that you want to be basing, like, what's your, I guess if you use the terms that we always use, what's my average, right? We just look at our median. And also you want to look at your average capabilities. Again, capabilities in whatever skill set or whatever area that you're looking at, whether it's your driving or your ball striking or your chipping, your pitching, your putting, however you categorize your game, you're looking at what's your average skill set around those areas, not the one that you want to have and you're hoping to have, and the one that you get 10% of the time, or maybe after you hit a bucket of balls, you finally figured it out, and then you can repeat it for the next 10 minutes or 30 minutes or hour. We're looking at what is your average capabilities that's going to probably come out when it's on the golf course. And having a good idea of what that is, allows you to keep yourself a lot more composed when you're on the golf course. If you're going out to the golf course saying that, your realistic median score is, let's say it's 75 in your median score, but you step on the first tee saying, well, today, what would make me really happy and what would be good would be like a 72, right? And so when we think that way, right, we know our realistic average is 75, but we have all of this excitement going on. I worked in this, and now what I really want to do as I step on the first tee is I want to shoot a 72, or maybe it's a 69. Today's the day I'm going to break par, right? So you're setting yourself up with a bar like so high that, and even if it's like one shot, maybe it's your median 75 and you're saying I'm going to shoot 74. And if you look at it realistically, like all of the data that shows you when I play, my capabilities is 75. Yet I'm going to say my normal intention, or what I'm trying to do today, is shoot 74, right? You have to put so many pieces together to shoot a score that it doesn't matter what score you try and put up. It's you can't really shoot a score on purpose, right? So, and what I mean by that is just because you say, I'm going to shoot 75 today, doesn't mean you're going to shoot 75. If it was as easy as just saying, I'm going to shoot this score, then you would be able to just walk up there and tee it up and play your own round, and you shoot the score that you would want to do. You know, the unfortunate part is there's so many areas that you don't have control over, and we get bad bounces, lucky bounces, that it's impossible to control like the exact score that you have. You can control, you know, at most your intention of what you want to do. So setting your median and knowing what that is going in allows you to play to what your score is and what you expect to shoot, and keep yourself more composed under certain times. Because the moment you start pressing yourself, because I should be doing this, I should be doing this, we start adding a lot more pressure and a lot more stress on our skills, which then make them fall apart and, you know, not able to produce. The way I'll kind of, this is a huge one that I kind of want to go a little further into. And what I mean by that is, sorry, I didn't plan to do this, but I do want to go into it further. So I'm going to, yes, I'm going to show you a little graph that I'm going to draw. And if you think of your golf game looking like a bell curve that looks like this, and we're going to say this is your average, we're going to say this is your good, and this is bad. So the realistic truth, the more golf you play, you'll be able to identify these areas here where there's still an average here, but there's a bigger average, and there's, you know, a good side of an average here, and there's a less performing side of your average right there. But at the end, it's still an average, right? And if we look at it in terms of a bell curve, every round you play, you know, will fit along this curve. And the reason why I said it as a bell curve, there's been studies done that shows that, you know, for every player, and if it doesn't matter if you're starting off or you're beginning, or starting off beginning, or if you're a, you know, a seasoned tour player, and we'll just talk about like your total score for a round of golf. Based on anybody's average score, and let's just say your average is 75. For 18 holes, your average can have a swing between this point and this point, right? The low side and the high point of about 10 strokes. So that means if I'm looking at 75 here, that fits in my curve, it could go down to 70, which is the good side, maybe a little better side, 70, which would be 2 under par, or it could go to 80. What's important here to understand is the 80 and the 70 are identical, I guess, reflections. So if your average is 75, the amount of times that you'll actually post a 70 would be almost, you can't see, I'm gonna write that a little bigger. So 70 and 80. So the amount of times that you would actually shoot 2 under par would be in a season or a career, if this stayed, you know, true forever, would be the exact, almost the exact amount of times that you would post an 80. But yet, the moment we shoot a 70, we're gonna tell ourselves, oh, that's my new score that I'm gonna be shooting for because I've done it. Or the moment we shoot a 71 or 79, right, the reflections, we're always going to be shooting for this thing, and we would move our expectation of like our realistic average or median score to shift over here, right? The opposite goes is the moment, even if I'm averaging or our median is 75, the moment I shoot an 80, what I start telling myself is, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know, I played so horrible today, I shot 80, I never shoot in the 80s. And, you know, on and on you go, getting yourself further down. And imagine, you know, if you're telling yourself this in the middle of a multiple day tournament, or maybe you're telling yourself this, right? This bell curve works on all aspects of your game, whether it's your total score, maybe it's even your shots, right? So that's why we want to know that, you know, do you have an average? You need to know your average capability. because what does my average shot look like? So if I look and I graph out this shot, right? Let's say the realistic expectation of a 75 shooter means they have, you know, solid contact and, you know, pretty good ball control. But being able to shoot 75, let's say your ball typically draws right to left on average. A 75 shooter would have a bigger variance of maybe blocking one for a right-handed player to the right and fading it or slicing it a little bit more than a 72 player. So their shape changes a little bit and it's not as consistent. But we're hitting these perfect shots, right? So we would also be looking at their stuff that's super good, right? Let's say I hit a drive that was perfect. I looked at it and it went exactly what I saw in my head or visualized, and it went as far as I could do it, perfect bounce, and that would be here, right in this area here. That would be good. So the moment that we start looking at these shots, then everything shifts to here, not knowing that there's an identical opposite on this side that goes for that good shot. And the moment we hit this one, we're then saying, I never hit these. And basically what goes in our head is we're thinking this whole curve, and every time we hit a good score here, a good shot, a good tournament, we're thinking our whole curve shifts over, and then this becomes our new model. Whereas the reality is it takes tremendous amount of shots, tremendous amounts of rounds to then get your median score to then shift the curve, right? You need more than one round. You need to see patterns to see, is this shift moving over? So, you know, we'll have the same amount of good shots, really good shots, that we would bad shots, right? And if we understand, like, where does my average fit in, and what is my average shot? What's my average capabilities? What's my average score? Then I would be able to go and approach playing a golf tournament, playing my round with a lot better, you know, composure, and, you know, keeps me in the moment of making better decisions as I play. So very important that you understand, like, where are you really, right? It's getting just the actual truth of where am I at in my game today, so I know what I have to do in the training aspect to move my game to the next step forward. As we go down to our second part, you know, we have to understand that golf is a game of chance, right? This was kind of a funny story that was shared by a sports psychologist, Dr. Rick Jensen. He shared this concept. He's one of the leading sports psychologists. I think he does all sports, but he's mostly known for golf and tennis. So he has multiple major winners in both, you know, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, Senior Tour, as well as, I think, multiple winners on the Grand Slams in tennis as well. And he kind of shared this story that I want to share with you guys, right? Golf is a game of chance, meaning that you don't really have, you don't have control over what comes out. So if we understand this slide here and know what is my average capabilities, or my median scores, my average capabilities, and what to expect, right? And what's good and what's not good. And, you know, let's say we hit a hole-in-one on a hole. That would be off the chart, not even on your curve, that would be hole-in-one, right? And so it wouldn't be repeatable on purpose. And for a 75 shooter, let's say we hit it off the shaft and shank it. That would be off of their curve and probably on this side, which is not their capability as well. So it doesn't fit on their actual performance curve. So it's a game of chance, because if you look at this, we have a lot more space here than we do down here. Like, so if we look at like kind of where this curve for our average is, right? The amount of good and bad relative to our regular capabilities is half bad, or half, I guess we could say a quarter, and then the other 50% is here. So that means we're going to get a ton more of our average shots, right? 2 times more of our average shots than we will ever see like over the course of time than your good shots and bad shots. So what I mean by chance when we look at golf as a game of chance is when you step up there, right, all we have control over is our preparation beforehand and our intention that we're going to do, you know, as we initiate whatever shot that we're going to do, right? The moment we hit it, it's going to fall in one of three categories. It's either going to be an average shot out here, it's going to be a good shot that you would judge as good, or it's going to be a bad shot, right? We can't say it's going to be average, good, or bad before we even hit it. So the moment you hit it, it's going to fall in this category. And what you're going to find, right, and this is a ton of their research done based on a lot of data points that they're measuring, you know, all sorts of golfers that are playing. Like as soon as they hit it, what does it feel like? Oh, it's good, right? It's going to be good for me. Where does that fall, right? Is average, is it falling here, right? So one of the games that we play is if you go out and you play a game and you don't even keep score, and all you're doing is rating each shot based on, you know, your realistic capabilities, and say we hit my drive on the first hole and you say, well, that was about average, it wasn't anything special. You would then put an X where on this average part you would go. Then you hit your next shot, and if your next shot, maybe you hit behind it and you chunk it, and it's something that's a little unusual, but it occurs, so then we'll toss an X right here on the bad side. Your third shot going into that hole, maybe you hit it perfect and it goes to a foot from, let's say, 60 yards away, and that would definitely be above your average, above anybody's average to hit it to a foot on general, so then you'll be an X here. And if you start rating all of your shots, you'll notice that you'll have shots kind of lined up all over this curve, and you would kind of rate it of, is it closer to average on the bad side or closer to good on the average side, or how good it was. And you'll also have outliers that typically don't happen, like the hole-in-one would be out here, the shank would be out here. Let's say you just shots that you don't typically hit would be on these outlier boards. So that being said, you're going to find out that 50% of your shots are going to fall in this category, and 25 and 25, or it's going to be extremely close. And the more you do it, you're going to find it's going to fall closer to 50, 25, 25. So that being said, all you can do is execute the shot and kind of see where it falls and understand that I'm going to get these shots here and I'm going to get these shots here. What happens is we always just look at the curve like this and we say all we want is everything on this side. And when we play the game that way, those are the days that we get disappointed more than half of the time. If we look at the realistic expectation of this curve here, in a normal round of golf, in a normal session, in a normal career, season, however length you want to call this, the duration, if we don't understand this, the reality is going to mean that half of the shots, scores, everything that you do is going to be below your average of wherever this is, right? Even if you get this to, let's say, PGA Tour level, and your average score and you're on the PGA Tour is going to be 70 shots, 70 point something shots. Even if this is 70, you'll still have a good side and you'll still have a bad side of the curve, which means it doesn't matter what level you get to. Somebody that's starting out and shooting 150, right, will have a good side and a bad side, and you'll have half of all of your shots, all of your scores worse than normal or average. So, you know, you have to understand that if half of your shots are going to be below average, we got to understand that if these come out, I'm also going to get these shots that come out. If these shots come out, I'm also, so as we start playing in this area here, right, and you understand your capabilities, know that, you know, the commitment over time, the practice and everything that you put in, if you continue to persist and make through, you will get these shots here, right? And it could even be within a round, right? You could hit a really bad one, top it in the water, which means, well, I got one here. That means somewhere I'm going to also get another one here to balance it out. So golf, you know, is pretty balanced. So you never know what you're going to get. All you can do is set your intention. What keeps most of us performing on this side of the curve is having too much of this intention, of the good intention, or not good intention, good unrealistic psychology behind like what we're thinking. And as we're thinking we want to achieve this, we're getting this, then what changes the most is our intention of how we play the game. So then we start approaching our next shot with, you know, thoughts in our head of, you know, is it my swing? Should I work on this? And you're doing that in between holes, right? I've done it in the past. I've played rounds of golf, you know, in tournaments, going in with thinking I'm going to hit it perfect. And then, you know, I hit my first like nasty looking drive that went out of bounds. And all of a sudden I think, what caused that? And oh, is it this? And I'm the very next drive, I got a new swing, or at least probably looks the same, but a new intention on my swing, and not thinking that, well, it was just one of these that came out. If I just play my normal golf, it'll be balanced with this. But now when I start changing things and I start working on my golf swing, or maybe I miss a short putt, oh, I got to change my routine. Maybe my stroke was too fast. I got to slow it down. I start messing with the intention that I set before I get into the game. And now we start to stay in this side because now we're not playing to our average capability. We're playing at a game and a level that you've never done before, right? If you think about it, we've never tried something new for the first time and went brand new and say, I got this idea. It's really cool. I haven't really practiced it, but I know it's going to perform well. Let me go play my next round of golf tomorrow. Let me sign up for my golf tournament tomorrow because I got this idea. No, you have to practice the new idea, the new theory, the new, you know, drill that you're going to do to change. And you create your intention, you create your routine to then understand this is where my game is, and you stay within those limits the entire time. Right? Could you have a round that kind of performs this way most of the? Yes. But will you do it over and over again? You won't, unless you keep yourself there with changing your intentions throughout. But if you stick to it, even if you did nothing else, but then just say, well, I had a 80, I shot an 85 today, or whatever it may be, somewhere on this end. And you just continue to play with no changes at all, and you play your same game, that 85 will almost guaranteed not happen the next day, or the next time you play. You will get somewhere on this side, or if you do it again, it eventually will normalize back to this side. We see it all the time at the best players in the world. So when you start looking at, if you watch PGA Tour players or LPGA Tour players, where you see them shoot something off the grid here, right? 62, which is out here. The chances of them shooting a 62 the very next day is almost zero, right? So a lot of times you might see somebody who doesn't normally shoot that low, and we might be watching it on TV, and it's maybe a newer player that we haven't really heard of. They shoot a 62 and they say he came out of nowhere shooting a 62, and then the very next day he shoots a 75, which may be somewhere on this side of his curve. And then we would, you know, the analyst would say, oh my God, he choked and he couldn't handle this. What it was is he hit it off the grid on the good side, and then it normalized back here. You know, you do see players that then shoot 62, 64, 65, 63, and they're kind of playing off of this grid here on the good side, and that's always the player that's winning the tournament, right? So when we start looking at why do players win tournaments, it's because they play a set of rounds that's outside of their capability, and not capability, it's outside of their normalized curve here, right? If you look at the top 10 players, what keeps them like a Brooks or a Tiger or a DJ, what keeps them in the top 5, top 10 week after week is because their curve is shifted so much higher than everybody else that their average and kind of this stuff that keeps them on the curve is better than most other tour players, like good end of the curve. And that's why they stay up there more often. That's why they win more often, because when they start shooting their lower scores, right, it's maybe a little bit off here, right? But then when they come back, it's still a 69, it's still a 70, and it doesn't shoot over to the other end. But you also see them with those shifts too. You see the best players in the world shoot a 62 and a 77, right? And it happens time and time again. So think of it like a game. Golf is a game of chance. You never know what's going to come up. All you know for certain is 25% will be on the upper side of good side of your curve. 25% will be on the bad side. The other 50% is going to be your average, unless you understand where you're meeting, where your average capabilities are, you're never going to accept the fact that this is how I'm performing on the golf course, right? Which brings us directly into our third point is skill acquisition takes more than one day. What that means is when we look, skill acquisition is anytime you're trying to learn something, and think about it like learning something and mastering a skill. So a skill would be anything you're trying to change in your golf game. So let's say you typically slice the ball, for example, right? You come out and all you do is slice it, and you took one lesson and now they teach you how to drive or hook it the other way, right? And then you say, oh my gosh, I figured it out and now I can hook it. And even your, you know, your golf instructor, your golf coach would then take you out there and you start hitting hook after hook after hook. And the very next day you go by yourself is you then have not acquired the skill, you haven't yet like mastered it, and you start slicing it again. Or you get a lesson on a Friday afternoon because you're playing on Saturday and you hit it the best in front of somebody because you're hitting these balls. You go to play golf on Saturday morning and your exact game comes out, right? It's because we can't acquire skills or change skills in a day. So the good news is, even when you feel like you're playing horrible and not to your standard, the skill that you have hasn't yet changed, right? You still have the capabilities of playing your good golf. The bad news is the moment we see it go downhill is the moment we start to change procedures and start reaching and searching for like, what's the one quick tip that's going to get me through this tournament or get my game to turn around, right? We can't do that, you know, as we play, you know. So, you know, this is a really important one to understand because even as we're reading this now, right, it makes sense, right? It takes a tremendous amount of hours, time, action that you're doing to actually reprogram yourself to do something differently, right? The further away from the reality and the actuality of what your skill set is, the longer it's going to take to acquire that skill. You know, the closer it is, then it happens, you know, a little bit faster. And it just depends, you know, how close to the original. But how many of you have played golf tournaments and, you know, maybe after your first round, it didn't go as well as planned. And then so you start beating balls after the round, you want to hit a ton of balls, go hit a lot of putts, right? And then you go the next day and you're trying to work on it on the range before you're teeing off, right? Even though you know, and this kind of makes sense, we still kind of program ourselves to do it. And we're start working on trying to figure out a lesson. The morning we're going to play the golf tournament. The morning we're going to play our round of golf and trying to fix stuff. When the reality is maybe it might get a little bit better, but when the moment your skills get stressed out a little bit, they're going to automatically convert back to what's most comfortable, or even worse. Now you're in a mode of confusion and your body's confused in the motor pattern deliveries, but the concept that you have in your head makes so much sense and you can't understand why it's not working because it makes so much sense in your head, but yet you can't produce the outcome. And doesn't matter how much you think about it, you take a million practice swings before you start hitting your ball and yet you can't do it. It's because skill takes time to transfer through, especially like when you're doing a motor development skill where your body has to move, you're changing patterns in motion as opposed to, let me just think about what I'm going to do differently and, you know, have it, see if it's going to do it. It just never works that way. So understand this fully, because if you're going to play your best round of golf, you're going to accept the fact that your skill is what it is the day of, and you're not going to change what you're thinking, the process that you prepare so much before that round of golf, right? Before that tournament, to then, you know, and just go out and play with what you have. And what you'll do is you'll just, you know, get awareness on the practice area of where's my ball going? Is there, you know, subtle adjustments that I can do that I've then practiced in the past, right? So you should always be practicing, like if things go, that's kind of in our training side, right? If things go sideways and I don't have control, is there something I can lean onto that I'll practice as well to then get more of the control back, right? But again, if you don't train that in, right, those things, when you hear tour players talk about that and the best players in the world, I kind of lost control, so I went with this go-to shot that I always do, right? And it always performs, and I could kind of scramble my round today, and I still ended up shooting a really good round, right? It's because, not because they know how to do it, it's because they practice it and transfer that skill, like a backup plan, into their practicing just in case things happen, right? So it's never by chance, it's always by design. So definitely understand, to change skill, you know, it takes more than a day, it takes more than a short period. You know, the most common question, you know, that comes up is, you know, I got this tournament coming up, I got to do this. And when is it? You know, oh, it's this weekend. I mean, there's nothing much you can do in a matter of a week, right? Oh, I got a tryout coming out. What do I do? I'm like, you know, you just got to get awareness of what your game is doing. There's nothing you can do in this week that's going to change your realistic, right? There's nothing that you can do in a week or in a day that's going to move this curve significantly, right? So it's, if you got a tournament, a tryout, anything time you have to perform, we're looking at this and say, like, this is what I have, and I got to keep myself in a space that I have the chance to have shots that end up here for that specific event. Maybe shots that end up here, right? Am I going to get some that end up on this side? Absolutely. But know that this is where I'm at, and there's nothing I can do in a very short amount of time to shift this curve over. So skill acquisition takes more than a day. Do not practice a training session the day you're going to play golf, the day you're going to play a golf tournament, the morning that you're warming up. You just have to warm up. Also create a warm-up plan before you play, right? So the first three are kind of more psychology and mindset things that you have to know and just get aware of, because if you don't understand this concept in the first three, then you're not really able to implement the last four. The last four gets a little bit more on the tactical side, whereas this, you just have to fully understand, right? This is like your baseline, your metrics. This is a little bit more of our mindset and buying into the fact that this is what's going to happen. So then you can take some of the tactics to keep your rounds better than normal, right? So are there strategies that you can do when you're playing to then say, well, how can I stay a little bit more on this side today, even if I'm not playing well, right? And there are ways that we can do that as well, right? So the first one that I want you guys to get is opportunity versus recovery. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Everybody wants opportunity, right? If we're recovering from something, that means we're in a place of struggle. We're in a place of challenge where we're testing ourselves. Opportunity, there's always an upside. So whenever you play golf, whenever to play your best rounds, we are always having more shots of opportunity than you are recovery. And if we understand that basic concept, right? How can I play my next round of golf? How can I play this hole coming up where my ball settles in a place of opportunity versus recovery? These are pretty subjective. So unless you know your actual capabilities, your opportunities are going to be overly exaggerated, and you're going to misjudge some of the recovery situations for opportunity. So opportunity is any place that your ball lies that is in a place of score. So let's say, for example, I hit my tee shot and it goes down the middle of the fairway, perfect lie, and I have a wedge into the green. For a 75 average player, having a wedge into the green gives him an opportunity for birdie. Doesn't guarantee the birdie. So now that you have an opportunity for birdie, you then hit your next shot. And it depends what that next shot does, whether you stay in opportunity or you end up in recovery. So for example, you hit that next shot to 3 feet. You are now 3 feet away from birdie and you have opportunity for birdie. It does not mean you're in recovery. if you hit that ball to 3 feet and you're playing at Augusta and you're on a like really slanted slope like this, and you're not the best short putter and you get nervous over breaking fast putts, you're no longer in opportunity, you're then in recovery, right? So the scenario shifts based on, you know, where your capabilities are. So the goal is to keep yourself in opportunity. If you're in a really fast 3-foot putt coming downhill and you don't like those, not many people are going to like it. That's more recovery, right? So if you miss a 3-foot putt on that situation, we have to accept the fact that, yes, I was in a recovery situation. I could have made it. Can you score from a recovery? Yes. Can you score all the time from recovery? No. You're going to always outperform from opportunity. Let's say you were 10 feet going up the hill, pretty flat. You're going to make a ton more 10-footers up the hill that's flat, or not much break going uphill than a really sliding 3-footer down here in recovery. So when you start playing, keep yourself and understand, like, based on my capabilities, how do I keep myself in opportunity? When we start playing and we're only looking at the flagstick and we're only looking at, you know, I want to hit these shots here and not understand these shots could come out, right? We're playing unrealistic golf, and you'll find yourself often in recovery too many times. So we have to plan around like what could happen either side of my spectrum to stay in opportunity. Let's say, for example, you're not the best wedge player and you tend to thin and top a lot of shots. The last place you want to be is where you have to hit a wedge that goes high and over a bunker. So when you're in the middle of the fairway and, you know, there's let's say a bunker in, you know, on the right front of the green, and you're not the best ball striker, but, you know, you're saying like, I'm 120 yards away, I'm going to go straight at it, but you don't hit it solid all the time, right? Going straight at it is going to most likely put you 50% of the time in recovery, right? Based on like your capabilities, right? If you're a really good ball striker, then it doesn't phase you at all. It keeps you in opportunity. But you're in opportunity, but now you're challenged with going over a bunker, which takes you out of opportunity and back into recovery. So then a lot of times, based on your skill set, right, if you can't hit those wedge shots that go high, you have to take it in a spot where keeps you in opportunity. So, you know, maybe not go for the flag, go for the side of the green where you have the least amount of chance of going over the bunker, because the chances of you hitting a high soft wedge shot over the bunker is going to be, you know, almost zero if you don't have that capability. But if you hit it to the side of the green, is there a chance for your ball to catch the edge and you still have a putt? Absolutely. Could you hit your ball to the side and chip and have a like simple bump and run shot that you might be more comfortable, that keeps you an opportunity to lower your score? Every time we go to recovery, it then ups our chances to make our score go higher, right? So try and tie an opportunity to opportunity to opportunity, and you're going to notice your scores drastically go down. But you'll also see the opposite. The times that you play and shoot your highest rounds of golf, and if you go back and stat and track all of the rounds that you played, why did I make, if I'm a 75 shooter again, why did I make a triple on that hole? Right? It's because I went from a recovery and thought it was an opportunity, or tried to create an opportunity, back to another recovery. So when you start going recovery to recovery to recovery, that is when your scores go up. When we look at, you know, my history might be a little bit bad, but I believe Bill Haas had won the FedEx Cup several years back. And in that Tour Championship, he played his last, I want to say it's 18, and again, I apologize if it's wrong, but he could have played the last one. He played it out of the water, and then he hit it, I believe he hit it on the green, and that kind of got him to win the Tour Championship, or earn enough points to win the FedEx Cup, where he is the #1 player, you know, of the season. But he played it from the water. Many of us may have said that's crazy, and that's a recovery. But I don't know if he's done it before. Maybe he has, maybe the situation, but he knew his capabilities presented an opportunity versus taking a drop in wherever area that he could drop it, right? If he took relief from that water. So he rated like, where could I, if I had to take relief, I would go here. if I played it from here and it doesn't look that bad, he rated as, well, it's more of an opportunity than a recovery going on the other end, and then he did it, right? And then he was successful. Could he have kept it in the water? Absolutely, because he could have then not hit one of these shots. He could have hit one of these shots that kept him in the water, right? So again, it's by chance. Just so happened this one came up, right? It's a game, and then he won the FedEx Cup. So understand opportunity versus recovery. Stay in opportunity longer, and your scores will stay on the better side of your rounds more consistently. As we go down to the strong side, or the next one, strong side versus the weak side, right? This is a little bit more tactical. Again, it's very subjective based on what your capabilities are. So if I draw something out for you here, just to give you a brief explanation on this one. Let's say we have a green that looks like this. Let's say your tee box is here, and we are hitting this way. What we mean by, and let's say the flag stick is right there. What we mean by strong versus weak, the strong side is where are you relative to the flag stick that you'll perform the strongest from over the course of an average, right? If you did it 100 times, where will you score the best from out of the 100 times? The weak side is what the opposite. Where am I going to perform the worst on average? Could you be on the weak side and perform great? Yes. Could you do it over and over and over again like you could on the strong side? You definitely could not, right? So we will define the strong side is anywhere where there's room for the ball to roll to the flag stick, right? So anywhere over here. So if we're going this way, our strong side to this flag would be anywhere in this area. Actually, I'll use black. Anywhere in this area here. It would also come out in this area here and that area here. So if I'm anywhere in this margin here on the green and it covers the green, right, to missing the green, I'm going to outperform myself 100% over the course of shots every time my ball is in that position, because there's no green to work with, right? And it makes it more challenging because the moment you pass the flag, it continues to move further, whereas anywhere on the strong side, the ball works towards a flag, right? It always moves towards a flag. So when we understand this concept, how do I keep my ball? One, I have to assess where is the strong side of the flag stick, right? So I can then assess where I need my ball to go, right? One of the simplest questions that you can ask yourself as you're playing a hole, if you don't understand it and know this, is you would then ask yourself, where, like, if I'm looking at this hole, where on this hole or by the green or anywhere this approach is coming out, where is it that I don't want to be, right? Well, let's say there's a bunker here, right? You would say, I really don't want to be in the bunker, which means your strong side is back here, right? Again, it's based on capability, right? So keep yourself on the strong side, and that definitely keeps your scores down, because again, if you're ever on the weak sides of the flag sticks are always in recovery situations. So when we start looking at, you know, why am I in recovery around the greens? And sorry, just to clarify, strong versus weak only refers to, you know, around the putting green, right? So the surrounding areas of the green. So that's typically your approach shots coming in. So assess, where is my strong side? And that's where I want to be. And you have to plan for this. So if I'm hitting a shot this way, I'm definitely not aiming at the flag stick, because again, we have this curve here. If I hit everything on this side, right, my ball is going to end up by the hole. If I hit anything in my average and it goes a little bit shorter, I am then on the weak side, which then brings my stroke average up, right? Makes this chip shot, pitch shot, wedge shot, bunker shot, whatever this is, you know, a lot more challenging. So understand strong versus weak. This concept, is discussed, further by, one of the, I'd say he's one of the leading golf strategists out of Texas, Scott Fawcett. He has a company called Decade, and he talks a lot about strategic golf management, right? And he discusses a lot about, where do you need your ball to end up, right? And a lot of his stuff he based on data, right? He looks up, and he's a numbers guy. He looks at where everybody hits it, and he formulates, like, out of everybody who hits it and every shot that's been hit, why is it that people outperform here and there? And some of the data that he pulled was every time there's a #1 player in the world, whether it was Tiger back in his heyday, and again, he's in his heyday now, he's playing really good, whether it's DJ when he was world #1, Rory when he was world #1, the pattern that always comes up for the best players in the world, the players that are winning tournament after tournament, getting top 10 after top 10, is they're on this strong side of the flagstick, whether it's chipping, putting, right? They're in there between 70 and 80% of the time, right? So when you look at the best players in the world, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, it is designed that they understand the shortcomings of being on the weak side, and they're purposefully putting themselves in these opportunities where then they can chip in, when they can make a long putt. And if they hit a shot that's on the far end of their spectrum, they're at 2 feet when the flags are on the edges, right? So they're always playing to this side 70 to 80% of the time, and it's on purpose, right? Because we don't have total control of our golf ball, right? We can't just say, I'm going to hit it here and hit it there. We can't say, I'm going to hit it there and hit it there. You're going to plan for, wherever it is that you want it to go, and make sure that most of your shots end up there. Again, if you are 100% on this side, then you're playing a little bit too conservative, and you're leaving your putts and your chips are going to be a little bit too far, which makes that point a little bit more difficult. So best players in the world are going to stay on the strong side 70 to 80% of the time. Another stat that I found remarkable was the #1 highest scoring average on the professional tour, is a front pin location. It's because, professional golfers feel that they're really good ball strike, and they are really good, but they have a lot less control than we think and than they think. So it's the highest scoring because they aim it straight at the flag, and because of variance and understanding their ball is not always going to go exactly where they want it to go, they end up in this short side, and they underperform from this side more than they would on this side. So the #1 hardest flag position, and even if you're playing now and you start looking at it, the #1 highest scoring is always a front pin location. But if you look at the opposite, the lowest scoring position on tour is a front pin location with a water hazard, some kind of difficult bunker that's in front. And if we understand why is it that the same scenario with an obstacle in the way gets it to be the lowest, is because then it forces them to plan this opportunity where out of the entire field of golfers that are playing the event, they end up in opportunities. So the scoring average for the field on that hole goes down with an obstacle here. So I thought that was a really cool data point that he pulled out, because sometimes you get forced into the strong side when there's someplace that you really don't want to go. So be on the strong side 70 to 80% of the time. As we go into number 6, we do have shot pattern variance. And what that means is, this again is taken, Scott Fawcett, he discussed it a little bit further, but all of these data points shows that when we hit golf balls, doesn't matter how good you are, right? We don't hit it as straight as we think, but we think we hit straight. We think it's like a point and shoot kind of thing. I'm going to point there and I'm going to hit it right there, right? But the realistic truth about it is when we hit a shot, our ball actually flies and scatters, right? So we expect the one shot to be perfect, but the easiest way to put this, if you were to hit a large bucket, 100 balls or 150 balls with just your favorite golf club, you put an alignment stick down and you aim it at the same target ball after ball, you're going to notice that you, Tiger Woods, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson will not hit it on the same line over and over and over again. It might, the better your capability, right, your variance is going to be smaller. But as we look at this, right, this is kind of our variance. If we're teeing up a ball from here, always think that we hit it in a pie that looks like this. And that is the shape of our shot. So if we look at this is how we hit our balls, this is what could happen, right? We may look at a PGA Tour player, maybe for this distance, whatever we want to call this, a PGA Tour player may be coming in this way. So their pie is going to be smaller, and that's what makes them more capable than us, right? This, let's say this is for a 75 shooter, right? If we're getting a beginner, their pie may be, that just picked it up for the first time, their pie may be out like this from this distance, and they just have a bigger slice of pie. The truth is, no matter how you hit, we are hitting in this pie shape pattern. And if we understand that, then we can plan for it. So I'm going to turn this page and let's just, I'm going to give you an example here, right? So if we have a green that looks like this, I'm going to put a, let's just say the flag stick is like this, and we're going to say the water comes out like this. And we're hitting from down here. So if we understand our variance, and the yardage here doesn't matter, right? Because every club you hit is going to have a variance. The further your ball goes, the wider your variance is going to be. So your driver will have the biggest variance, your sandwich will have the smallest variance. So a lot of times we could hit a really good shot and the ball would just come and go splat in the water right here. And we're like, oh my God, I hit it bad. When in fact, we may have looked at it as I could have been aiming directly at the flag stick, but my variance of shots that I hit, and these, when I say variance, this means the shots that you hit pretty good, right? On your average shot right here, average shot pattern. You know, your off the spectrum shots, off the curve shots are going to be out here, right down here. But your average shots will look like this. If you don't understand how to plan for your average shots and understand the variance, right? If I told you your shot will go here and you hit it in the water here, it wouldn't be, you shouldn't get shocked at this outcome because part of your pattern is touching the water, right? So if you understand your variance, if you were then to just shift this pattern this way a little, so now I'm going to just draw this higher so you can see. So now your pie may look this way instead. Now, instead of aiming at the flag here, your new target becomes there, just to the side. Could we still get it next to the hole? 100%, because there's still the flag stick still ends up in your pie. But what does it do? It drastically reduces the chance of you hitting an average shot into the water, right? And again, it's expectation. So we think that just because we're going in here, we probably hit it bad. Whereas a lot of times we could hit good shots, right? That fit our pattern that end up in, you know, really, really difficult spots. So, you know, really understand the patterns. And if you understand your variance is your left to right ratio, right? Then you can plan away from being where you don't want to be. And this gets you on the strong side more often than the weak side. Obviously, this would be the weak side and also recovery. This would be the strong side. So know the variance and get yourself into more opportunities. Sorry, we're going a little over time, so thanks for sticking with me here. As we go into our final number here, number 7, is you want to remove all emotion from your decisions. And again, I'm going to emphasize this, all emotions from your decisions, right? So if you play enough golf, you've come across certain shots where you're on the golf course and you're getting ready to hit it, and you're playing really good, and then you say like, man, I can pull this shot off, and you're having the day of your life and you're playing your best round. I can pull this shot off, and let's take this scenario here, right? And there's the water here on the left, and you're coming into the last hole is a par 5, and this is 230 yards away, pins here. And if you just make an eagle, you're going to shoot the course record, and you're hitting it so well. So you take direct aim here and say, man, I know my pattern, but you know what? I'm going to aim straight at it. And you change, and now you're bringing emotion, because now you're saying, oh, I'm hitting it so good, so I should be able to pull this shot up. Reality is, the moment you bring your emotion in, right, you then start moving your pattern and then shifting, and now water comes into play, right? Or the opposite. How many of you have been out playing saying, man, I'm not hitting it very good. The water's right here. I'm just going to aim it way over here to the other side. And then you hit it there, and it's a more difficult chip than it should, right? And now understand, like, this is my game plan. This is my capabilities, right? And I'm going to stick to this 100%. If it goes in here, then it goes in there. But knowing this, you're planning enough away from this, and you're not taking additional conservative, marks. So emotion, plays such a tricky and terrible game because we get in there and we always feel that we can do more than we can, or we underestimate and say like, I'm really not doing good, and we don't give ourselves enough credit, right, to understand like, my capabilities can do this no matter what. Because as we go back, if we understand this stuff, right, our psychology, our skill it takes more than a day to change your skill, right? Could you have bad moments? Yes, you could have bad moments, but then we understand, that it's a game of chance. And then we look at, I could also hit this shot, right? That puts me in the water. So remove all emotion from making decisions. And the only way you do that is you have to have a plan before you play, right? Why do PGA and LPGA and the best professional golfers in the world play well at the same courses every single year? Why does Tiger always play well at the Masters, right? It's because he played it so many times, and he has a map of the course that he adjusts every single year, and nobody out of all the players that play it probably knows it more inside out than him. And that's why he performs on average better than most players at that course. And you'll see that across every course, right? Why do you play so well at your home course more than away courses? It's because you've played it so many times, and whether you're deliberately creating a map, you have one in the back of your head, and you know where you should be going, where you don't want to be going, and you're playing for that, right? And you're playing with less emotion. The way you remove all emotion is you have to enter every single round of golf with a very specific plan of how you're going to approach the shot, right? That's why when we're playing, tournaments, there's practice rounds. People play practice rounds, right? The best players play practice rounds not for score. They're not trying to see how low they can go. They're hitting tee shots. They're dropping balls in the fairways. They're looking and writing in their notebook. This hole has this. I want to be here. So when they approach the tee, they're not even thinking, how am I playing? They look at their notebook and say, well, I'm going to hit it right here, right? Oh, this green's kind of tricky here. They have it in their notebook. All right, I'm just going to hit it here. Doesn't matter where the flag is. I'm going to hit it here. Oh, the flag looks like it's really good here. I'm striking it good. I'm going to take it to the flag. No, you're going to follow the notebook and follow the plan that you have. And that's how you remove all the emotion from your decisions. The more you add emotions to making decisions on the golf course, the more it takes you out of your comfort of what you practice. We don't practice playing golf, right? Bringing emotion in there. Nobody's ever been on the golf course or on the driving range hitting ball after ball, working on a technique to get their ball to shift a certain way or change a certain way or go straighter, go further, with saying like, well, I feel really good on this one, so I'm going to make it go on this one. You're kind of just going through a routine and swinging it, going through the routine and swinging it, thinking about whatever it is that you're working on, and then just doing it, right? You're taking the emotion out, right? You can lead with the emotion and then assess and say like, what just happened? And then, rebuild that on the range. But nobody practices with like, I feel like I'm going to do this time, and I'm just going to feel this all the time, right? As far as how well you're hitting it. No, very deliberate in the plan that you're building, right, when you practice. So why would you change that when you go on the golf course? Right? You need to create your plan before you enter the golf course, right? A very simple one, right, is just understanding like what to do around the greens, right? When you get near the greens, you need to have a plan of action that, based on your capabilities, tells you this is where I'm good, this is where I'm strong, this is where I'm struggling. So you have a hierarchy of skills that's going to say, well, no matter what, I'm going to putt it from here. No matter what, I'm going to chip it and bump and run it from here. No matter what, I'm going to hit a high and wedge shot from here. No matter what, I'll do a specialty shot from here, right? And you have a list of, typically it's putting's easiest, chipping's the next easiest, right? And it gets more difficult. Then a higher shot, flop shot more hard, right? Those specialty shots we don't do all the time. That's the most advanced, right? Usually specialty shots are always at the end, right? It's like our last resort. So just having a simple, that would be an example of like taking emotion out of your decisions. Because when you get next to, let's say you hit it to the side of the green and you're in a divot, well, you just say, well, where am I? Can I putt it from here? Yeah, then you just go putt it. You don't even consider doing anything else if you can putt it, right? That's creating decisions based on planning, right? If you hit it where you're just behind the fringe and you have 30 feet of green to work with, right? And you're a, let's say, 75 shooter again. Can you putt it? You might say, probably not, because I got a little bit of rough to go through. Can I hit a little bump and run chip and make it look like a putt? Because putting is where I have the most control. Absolutely. You wouldn't even consider hitting a sand wedge. You would just say, well, I can't putt it. Can I chip it? Yeah, I'm going to chip it. So you then chip it, right? No emotion. You're just going through your plan. You wouldn't say, if you go to like, well, I'm hitting these wedge shots, I'm going to try and like fly it all the way there and make it look like the PGA Tour, make it like check right by the hole, make it spin to the side and try and get like an ESPN top 10. Like if you see them doing it on TV, the conditions that they're doing it allows them to do it. And their map that they're doing tells them that the shot they're doing outperforms everything else in their decision tree. And that's why they're doing it. They're not doing it for the show. They're doing it because of performance, right? So you have to know your capabilities. So definitely planning before you head out to the golf course. If you go out and play your next round of golf and you don't have a book at a place that you're doing, that you're going to play your next event, right? And understand where you can and you can't go, then that's what you should be doing. That's the only way to do step number 7. How do you remove everything? You have to know what's going to happen before they happen, right? You have to know what the layout is so you can create your rules and placements before you play, right? You got to be able to anticipate what's coming. And that's the way you win the game, right? Play your best rounds. So those of you playing competitive golf and you want to take it to the next level, right? Start mapping out golf courses, right? You can use, there's a whole bunch of different tools. Go play practice rounds and take notes. Don't go play practice rounds and waste your time just playing 18 holes to see how low you can score. Like you're actually getting a feel, and do it like the best players in the world do it, right? Go play and analyze the golf course. What should I be teeing off with? Every tee box you go to, if you have your plan set up, you should be approaching the tee box knowing like, this is where I'm hitting it, and this is what I'm using. Not standing in the tee box and you're kind of debating, well, the hole looks kind of dog-leg left this way. I don't know how it's going to bounce there. I'm kind of hitting my driver, so what should I do? Well, I guess I'll hit my driver, right? All emotion. You should be going like, I'm aiming it at that section of the fairway with my driver, and I'm just going to hit it. I know my pattern, right? My shot variance pattern. I'm going to take that. It keeps me out of play and just go, right? Could it end up in trouble? Yes, it could. But is it going to get you to perform on average at a much better level? 100%, because now you're not trying to figure out what's going to work for you now. You had already planned for what your game is, right? Again, I'm always going back. You cannot change your skill in one day, but you can always make yourself worse in one day by overanalyzing, going through more swing techniques and trying to fix yourself on the golf course. Play with what you have, and I promise your ball sticks to that pattern that you practice over and over again. I know we're still going on time. I do want to share you one story with, a player that I work with back home. And, he just came back to, so a couple years ago, started playing competitive again. And, excuse me, I mapped out this course for him, and he hasn't played the course in a while, but it was a big qualifier for him. So it was a qualifier to get into the US Mid-Am golf tournament. So if you get into the national event, it's one of the biggest tournaments, amateur tournaments for males over the age, well, I want to say for males, maybe ladies can play it. I guess it might be open, but mostly males play. So one of the biggest amateur events, the US Mid-Am, for players over 25. Right? It's so big that if you win the national event, you get an exemption into the following year's Masters at Augusta. So, he has this vision. I want to go play in the Masters. I want to win the Mid-Am. And so he's got to qualify. So he calls me and asks me to map out this course for him, and I create this diagram for him. And, it kind of covers all of this stuff in this one little story. So he's playing, and it's a 18-hole qualifier. And in qualifiers, what's different is it's just one day. Sometimes it's 36 holes. And even if you're doing 36 in a day, you really don't see the scoreboard as much as like multiple day tournaments, where after you finish the day, you see the scoreboard. The next day, you see the scoreboard, and you're aware of where you stand. Whereas qualifiers, it's just like you have to win, or you have to come in top two, and there's no places after that, right? So you win or top two, whatever the qualifying spots are, to get you into the national event. So when you're playing, it brings emotion more in, because you're thinking of score a lot more as opposed to just going over and hitting the shot. So we create these maps of the golf course to be able to say, like, when you step on the tee box, this is the yardage, this is like your club selection. The only thing you change is based on course conditions, right? If the tee box is closer or further, if there's wind, right? That's what you're adjusting. You have your baseline, but there's not any emotion. There's just data that you're going by, right? So he calls me after, and he's playing really good, I guess, considering he never played in a long time. And so he said he's 4 under par going into hole 16, right? But in his mind, again, right now we're starting to play with emotion. He's telling me, in my mind, I'm thinking like 4 under is not going to do it in this qualifier. You got to have it like 5, 6, or 7 under, because somebody's going to career it in the round of whether it's 50 or 70 players that's playing this qualifier. So he's coming in with 3 holes left. And he says 4 under is not going to do it. I got to press, and I got to birdie in, right? We talked about it earlier. You can't just make a score on purpose because you feel like it. Otherwise, everybody would do it. So I remember on the 16th hole, the one hole, it was a really narrow green and 2 bunkers this way. And I put the note in there saying that if the flag is in the front, and the narrow part was right here, 2 bunkers here, but it got big in the back. And I said, if the flag is in the front, it was about 10 yards wide, right? Maybe a little less, 8 yards wide. So it's a really narrow gap to keep it on the green. Otherwise, it's big bunkers on either side. But the one big writing, I wrote it in bold. If the flag is in the front, you play it over the bunkers to give yourself a putt. Could you still get it by the hole? Absolutely, because it falls within our pattern. And he fully understood, yes, I'm going to play. I've been doing this all day. But he walked into that shot saying, I've been playing so good at 4 under, but I need to make birdie because I have a wedge in my hand. That was his emotion taking over. I have a wedge in my hand because I'm playing good. I should be able to aim at the flag and hit it there. And the moment he brought emotion in, he said, I hit a really good shot and it flew, but he played it for the flag. The wind pushed it. It ended up just catching the edge of the bunker, went into the bunker. So what just happened there? He went from an actual plan that's in front of him. He took emotion, went away from his plan, and instead of making birdie, he now has to put on himself, I got to hold out for par or hold out for birdie to get it going. Well, luckily he's a good player, but he got up and down. So he hit out of the bunker, made his par. But the key that he told me after was, well, it broke his momentum because he had everything going. And when he went to the bunker, right, it shifted his momentum. And then now he starts second guessing certain things. which then brings him into his next shot, was a short par 4, and then he starts to press more again, more emotion, because now he felt, I just lost my birdie opportunity and now I have to create one. And now, how can it fall apart in just 2 holes? And this is how it is. Bring emotion in and then start saying, I need to do this. And now you start to think, how can I swing it to create this? Now you're creating something that you don't normally practice. Playing well for 17 holes, 16 holes, 17 holes still went well, right? He then hits the worst drive of the day and snap hooks it out of bounds. Makes a double, goes into 18 and makes a bogey. So he played flawless for 16 holes, finished up double bogey and bogey, shot 1 under par. And the qualifying score to get into a playoff was 4 under, right? So had he just played his game, would he have shot 4 under? Possibly. We don't know, right? But could he have got 5 under and got into the qualifier? Yes, he definitely could, but we still don't know, right? Those last 2 holes, we have no idea. But could we have said, could he have been on this side of his curve a little bit more for the last 2 holes if he didn't take emotion and shift his whole process? The answer is going to be absolutely 100%, right? Didn't guarantee him shooting 4 under or 5 under or anything, but it would have put him in a place that he was at all day for 4 hours before the last 20 minutes of his day. He then shifted and then missed the playoff by 3 shots. So long story short, right? Even at the highest level, at the very beginner level, like, emotions never change, right? Whether you're topping it because you just started and you want to get the ball in the air, that comfort level of you being a little bit stressed and frustrated to get the ball in the air is the exact same as if you need to hit the ball 300 yards, you're a high level player or a tour player, you get 300 yards and you're trying to minimize your curve by 5 yards, right? The task becomes more difficult the better you get, but the feeling and emotions that you bring in are 100% identical, right? You can't tell the difference in a tour player that's frustrated and struggling on something, trying to overcome a barrier, versus somebody who picked it up for the first time that just wants to get it in the air. So as much as you can, we have to control our emotion, to just be able to get consistent rounds on the golf course and use these strategies to take it to the next level and play your best rounds on the golf course. So that being said, thank you guys for your time. I do want to leave with what you should be doing. So after you heard me talk for, sorry, it's a long one, hour and 20 minutes here. What you don't want to do is just go, yeah, this all makes sense. And I understand, got to know my capabilities. I know it already. I know what I should be doing. I kind of have an idea of what my ball looks like, what my score is. Yeah, golf's a fun game of chance. Anything could happen. Here's my bell curve. I know I can't change it in a day, so I'm just going to go with that. And I'm going to just give myself an opportunity, stay on the strong side longer, understand my shot pattern variance, and then, I'm just going to play without emotions in my decision. You just take this concept and you just try and implement it. That is what you want to avoid doing, because everything we went over this evening makes sense, right? So conceptually it makes sense, but in order to make it part of your game, part of your life, right, we have to implement these things. So what you're going to want to do after, in the next 5 minutes, if you are not yet journaling, you should definitely own a journal and start journaling, whether it's just on your golf, in your life, like write down like how your day went, write down key points that's going to take you to the next, what did I learn today, right? So definitely start journaling, start writing, so you have reference points, right? We leave it too much to emotion. What did I feel like last week? What did I feel like yesterday, right? If you have it written down, you know exactly what you were going through. You know exactly, even if you was frustrated and you're still frustrated today, is your frustration a little bit better, right? That's why we want to journal and write stuff down. So start keeping a journal, but write somewhere that you can hold with you. what is my median score? Like, what is my scores that I have, and what is my average capabilities? Not the capabilities that you're shooting for. Like, get the realistic picture. Start writing down and journaling. Like, where am I today? Every day you go out and practice. Where is your score? If you don't play golf, your score stays the same. But if you're practicing, your capabilities might shift. There's some things that may be like, this made sense conceptually, and I did this for the first time, right? You want to know exactly where you're at every single time, because if you know where you're at, you can create the road to where you need to be. If you're always guessing and giving yourself a misinterpretation of where you're at, and we do this a lot, we always give ourselves too much credit than what we always think we're way better than what we actually are, right? So write in and be the more truthful you can be about, like, this is where I'm at. When I'm playing, my ball curves 20 yards with this club, and it consistently does that. Don't just say, like, my ball hooks 20 yards with this club or this set of clubs with my drive, whatever it is. Or I'm topping it 5 out of 10 shots, or whatever it is. Know, like, where you're at, so when you start playing, you can start planning and taking these strategies and using them to its full potential, and not just saying, well, I should be hitting these shots, so my opportunity should be, I can hit this wedge over the flag and you get this side, wherein your capabilities can't get the wedge in the air. Or your shot variance for your 7-iron may be 20 yards wide, right? And you're thinking, oh, it's 10 yards wide because I'm hitting it good, right? And then you hit one in the water, right? So journal, write down where is your capabilities today, and always know every day, where are you? So then you can start understanding how you can get yourself to the next level. So thank you guys for your time. If you do have any questions, go ahead and ask. If not, let me see. Looks like Annie here. It's not a question, but she did say, you do understand, and I think I will hit it better, and I'm more confident to hit better shots. Awesome. So that's really good. I do want to kind of expand on just what you said, and I'm going to turn it into a question, or I'll turn it into something I can expand on. Confidence is really, really good, right? But if you understand, like, what your capabilities are, confidence takes you to the maximum of your capabilities more often. So if I'm super confident, but I don't have the capabilities of hitting the ball 300 yards off the tee, it doesn't matter how confident I get. Me being confident trying to hit it 300 yards is not going to make me any better, right? I'm going to be disappointed, and then your confidence goes down, right? So the way you stay in confidence, yes, confidence allows you to get the higher spectrum of your capabilities and be there for longer. But if you're not aware of your exact capabilities and what you can accomplish, confidence gets disappointed more often. And the more you get disappointed, the more confidence goes down. So yes, confidence is really good, but it does not elevate your skill level, right? Your actual performance skill. It allows you to take your capabilities to its highest potential, being confident, right? Practice, training, and intention, right? All of that stuff makes the skill better. So as we start going further, right? If you want to, when you start playing, right? Yes, always be confident. But if you're at a point where you need different capabilities, right? You have to then train for the capabilities, and then you steal that confidence and you apply it to the new capabilities to then keep it as high as possible, right? The more you get disappointed, the more, again, your confidence goes down. So thank you guys. If that looks like it's it, thank you guys for your time, and we will see you at the next one. Have a good night.